Next, we've got Gary Burnette. He's going to be telling some stories via his harmonica, class of 1961. He's been playing since 1958. That's longer than I've been on this planet. So he's a little bit experienced there. He likes to play by story, he said. He's taught several Boy Scouts how to play the harmonica, and this is kind of a lost art almost, I think. And so he's going to come, and he's also going to tell us some stories. He is a distant relative of George Washington, so I thought that was kind of interesting. But it's going to be a little bit different than everything else that we've had tonight, and like I said, we'd like to welcome Gary Burnette.
Well, I stand all amazed that these great people and somebody like me following all this kind of stuff. Well, I got a story to tell you, and I want to tell you the story because it's an important part of my life, and I believe it's an important part of what Safford High School meant to me, my family, and the class of 61. Many of you might know a little tiny community out south of town called Cactus Flat. Well, that's where I grew up. And we were a poor family. My dad and mom had 13 kids. We knew what it meant to go without dinner and lunch and breakfast. We were very poor. And so when we went to Safford High, we knew what it meant to try to be educated, to try to become somebody. And so this is the story. It was about 1958. I was a sophomore, and my dad's brother came to visit me. His name was Stephen. He was hard on luck, and he spent 2 or 3 months with us. And he actually told me the story about how he played the harmonica. And I was so fascinated with his story that I listened to him, and he gave me his harmonica. Now, I want to tell you that I can't read music, so don't place me amongst all these other great people that were here. So I practiced the harmonica that he gave me for 7 months before I could play my first tune. My dad, he says, "Gary, you got to be outside because I can't stand your music." Well, after about 7 months, and if you know the story of Old Susanna, which was the very first tune, it became so important to our pioneers that they played it at the firesides because they didn't have any pianos and organs and all this other stuff. So they would gather around the fire and play Old Susanna. It was also during 1849, when they discovered gold in California. It became a really important song, and when I grew up, it really was still kind of a neat song. So let me play you this song after all of these years. And forgive me, some of my teeth are gone, and I got dementia and all this kind of stuff with all my old age. But I think that it's important that you understand what somebody, a simpleton, a nobody, can do if they put their mind to it. Well, you may ask why I got my little costume on of the early founding fathers. Well, I found out that I'm related to General George Washington, his family. He had no kids, but I'm related to his mother's sister. And so after I retired, I got kind of bored. Retiring guys, they watch television and all that kind of stuff. But when I found out that I was related to Uncle George, my 9th grade uncle, I says, who is that guy? I know he's a father of our country. But I says, I really want to know more about him. So I read 200 books, wrote my first book, got another one coming out next year. At age 70, do you believe that? It was all because what was planted in my brain by the seeds of the people in the community at Safford High School. It really was. And so I started reading about him, and I found out that I was related. I've been in 17 parades in 2 different states. In my Washington costumes, I taught in home schools and charter schools, and I am so excited about the song that I found out. It's called Yankee Doodle. Do you know what the history of that song is? Well, I'm going to tell you the story of that song because it's really interesting. You see, Yankees was in New York, was settled by the Dutch, and doodle meant dumbbell, simpleton. Now, the verses go that you actually stick a feather in your hat and call it macaroni? No. You see this hat? This hat is called a tarconi. So they messed up macaroni with tarconi, and you see this little feather? So the people here in America, they put their hat on, and they had coonskin hats and all that kind of stuff, and they really looked lousy for soldiers. And they were dumbbells. And so what they did is they thought all they had to do to become somebody was stick a feather in your hat and with the girls be handy. Well, what is the origination of that song? When I started reading about it, I found out, whoa, I didn't know that. It was a British general, a surgeon, that actually composed the song to make fun of the ill-dressed simpletons in America. The doodles, the dumbbells. They didn't know how to dress. They didn't know how to march. They didn't know how to do anything. They were uneducated. And really, when the British started fighting against the Americans, they started singing Yankee Doodle in their face, making fun of them. You Yankee Doodle dumbbells. Well, guess what? There is a word in America that very few know about. It's called the yeomanry of America. Yeomanry was the only country in the world where the dumbbells and the poor people from around the world would come to become somebody. To become somebody. And it was all of the education schools that they started, so that with your education and your freedom and your liberty, you could be somebody, even though you were a dumbbell. And so in Safford High, this little dumbbell, Gary Burnette, he didn't do much scholastically. I'd like to have fun. But what I learned became my vocation. And I am so proud of what I learned at Safford High, and for the seeds that have planted in my heart and my family. 5 of us became engineers. I'm so grateful for what they did for us. So this song, Yankee Doodle, the dumbbells of Safford High, who became somebody. They were nobodies. And so the song, Yankee Doodle. And so, if you'll forgive me, in my old age, I've got a little bit of dementia. It's hard for me to memorize, but I wrote this little thing to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Safford High. What school district in the whole USA can boast of such superintendents as Lace Nelson? Principals like Donald Wilson, secretaries like Mrs. Sartorius, chief custodian like Cal Allred, teachers like Matt Duncan for English and drama, Del Stauffer for agriculture, Jesse Koppel for typing, Velma Kaiser for shorthand and bookkeeping, Mr. Samuel for math and science, Mr. Freestone, the Bulldog and the Ocotillo, Curtis Kimball for music, Dean Despain for shop. There are many other teachers that will always be an influence for the desire to plant the seeds of those educated at Safford High, but this student, a class of 61, wants to give thanks to all of those named and unnamed for what they have done for us. Here's a salute to the poor and the simpletons and the doodles of Safford High. We became somebody because of the fond memories of the years gone by. We made a real contribution to our wonderful country by what was taught. Yes, we thank the faculty, the community, the families, as we have not forgot. To all of those that brought these historic events to us, lifting us to a higher grade, not recognizing it until we had left the valley, now as an old senior, we clearly see the ace of spades. We say that the class of 61 had more common and simple people that became doctors, engineers, soldiers, professionals, and good mothers than almost any other class in our country's history. We say thank you to the leaders of Safford High for the glorious years and the memories gone by, that we have been made a better community, world leaders, because of the family histories and the challenges and the students and the progress anywhere. So thank you, Safford High. Thank you. Thank you for all of the seeds that you have planted to make the nobodies become somebodies. Thank you.